One of the things that attracted me and Sheila to attending services at UCSP back in the early 1990s was that there were several people who cared deeply about social justice issues. There was Helen Tucker and Janice Alton with The Voice of Women, June Scott with Pathway Housing, but for me, it was Ken Noble, a soft-spoken, tireless advocate for Amnesty International, who most impressed me. When Ken became ill with dementia a few years ago, Doug Alton and I could not let his legacy die at UCM. So we organized a small team with Kathy Stobie to continue Amnesty letter writing. Janice Alton took Doug's place after her husband's passing. Last week in the Shining Chalice, we asked everyone to sign a change.org petition urging Mayor John Tory to accelerate the transfer of homeless people from overcrowded shelters to empty hotel rooms. Since then, about 1,000 homeless people have been moved to hotels and community centers, but there are still about 6,000 homeless people left in Toronto. So if you haven't signed the petition yet, please do. We have a new petition this week, one you may have heard of during the inspiring One World Together at Home television concert last Sunday evening. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for a global ceasefire from armed conflict during the COVID-19 crisis. And almost 2.5 million people have signed the avaz.org petition supporting this cause. It's a great opportunity to stop fighting wars and concentrate on fighting the pandemic instead. Please click on the Avaz petition in the Shining Chalice if you wish to support it. We also have a traditional Amnesty letter writing this week. In the Shining Chalice, you can see a link to a letter urging a Philippines military general to drop charges against 24 people arrested for peacefully protesting government food assistance during the pandemic. The picture you see there is the one of the global ceasefire petition online. With the letter, you can download the letter, print it and sign it, and mail it in an envelope if you wish, or you can scan your signed letter and email it to my email address in the directory, and I will send a group of letters. Regarding social housing, we are pleased to report that our Pathway housing buildings are surviving well during the COVID crisis. April 1st did not begin well, with 30% of tenants reneging on their rent checks, but Pathway staff helped residents to apply for the CERB and EI subsidies, and almost all of the rent arrears have vanished now. Many families are feeling the strain of kids at home confined to an apartment building, but tenants are maintaining social distance, and there are no reports of COVID illness in any of our buildings. Pathway has also organized with the Mississauga Food Bank to arrange volunteer food deliveries to shut-in seniors. The Social Justice Committee invited a speaker from the Compass Food Bank in Port Credit to speak to our previous Zoom meeting, and Debbie Callender will write in the Shining Chalice soon about how UCM volunteers can sign up to do food deliveries safely or even to do intake interviews. The Social Justice Action Committee also believes that environmental protection is part of social justice, so I am passing the stage over to Susan Berry of the Mississauga Climate Action Group to speak about their current priorities. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you, John. So I'm really happy to be here this morning to be able to talk to you about climate action as a member of Mississauga Climate Action, which has been meeting at UCM for approximately the last year. I'm happy because it's a wonderful but a terrible time, a time of possibility and promise amid the terrible devastation of COVID-19 and the real-time impacts of climate change we're all starting to notice. The possibility of change inspires me as much as the devastation causes me fear. And I want to act and I want to be effective in making the changes we need to thrive past these difficult times. I want to do that for my children and yours and theirs, and for the birds and the bees and the oceans and the seas. I want to be part of the great human project to set ourselves on a better path. Out of the ashes, they say, and I agree. Let's pull our economy out of the ashes of COVID-19 shutdown and put it on a trajectory that will mitigate and adapt to climate change. Others agree with me clearly, which is why in the past week, instead of propping up the oil and gas industry with unfocused billions, the federal government has stipulated that such funds are to be used to cap off old oil wells. It still makes me angry that millionaires and billionaires who left the mess are getting off, and we, the taxpayers, are not only involuntarily conscripted to fund the cleanup, but we're also being forced to fund the oil patch expansion with investments in pipelines to take our oil to China and the US. Frankly, it's enough. Enough is enough. It's time to give our federal government some direction as to how we can use our collective assets to address many of our problems. Right now, Trudeau has named 3 cabinet ministers who have long-standing service on the environment to develop an economic stimulus plan to restart the economy, which aims to accelerate the country's transition to a green one once the COVID crisis is over. The 3 MPs are Stephen Gilbert, Kathleen McKenna, and Jonathan Wilkinson. Their objective is to find a plan to prioritize the use of clean energy in an effort to reduce Canadians' dependence on fossil fuels. So that's pretty exciting. So if you're wondering if there is a plan for Canada to adopt and adapt a project that would not only make Canada a green tech leader, but also address other systemic problems in our society, such as economic inequality and Indigenous access to green energy and internet services, I have to commend to you the Canadian Postal Workers Union proposal called Delivering Community Power. You're probably going to laugh when I tell you I think Canada Post might lead us off into a greater future, but it's true. The plan, which is seriously being discussed at federal levels, would have the government transform the Canadian auto industry by rolling out electric vehicles with the largest fleet in Canada, Canada Post, by turning post offices into clean energy efficient outlets, and by allowing people to buy into their own EVs and solar panels at discounted rates at the same time we transform our collective government assets. Canada Post will become a model for providing silver services, keeping people safe in their homes by delivering groceries, medicine, and doing vulnerable checks on vulnerable people. This plan is modeled on plans that have succeeded in transforming European economy. I encourage you to learn more on their website. Check out deliveringcommunitypower.ca and take a few minutes to learn more about this plan and write to your MP and the 3 MPs who are going to lead our country into a more prosperous, equitable, and green Canadian economy. The plan is there. All we have to do is try it together. Thank you, everybody.